balance.
Dan's really good at pushing those.
That's two. Live.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. I'm going to call our budget hearing to order. We have one agenda item, presentation of the proposed 2014-2015 budget. Vicki?
Okay. We're going to talk about the debt fund first, because there's a few changes from our normal debt fund budget that we passed in years past. So I'd like to talk about the debt fund first. The total value of all our properties in the district are $443,417,712. That is probably the first year we've had an uptick in quite a few years, so that's a nice thing to see. The calculation of our debt levy includes the new small taxpayer personal property exemption. That's in effect for the 2014 year for commercial and industrial personal property. And this revenue loss for municipalities, and that includes school districts as well. The debt incurred prior to 2013 will be reimbursed for the loss of this revenue, and that will be reimbursed from the state, and that needed to be considered in our debt levy. So it was quite a process actually this year, because we had to wait for the assessors to finish their assessments, identifying the small taxpayer personal property and the value of that. They had to go to the county, and then they had to give us a number that we could provide to the financial consultant so they could consider that in our debt levy calculation. So this all happened within a couple weeks, and so it has been quite a process. But anyway, we've considered that, and that's where we determined our debt levy after Starter Budget did a calculation for us. So the levy needed this year to pay our debt is 5.6 mils. I think we talked about 2 mils increase when we went up for the bond issue, so that's slightly better than that. And our revenue generated from the 5.96 mils is $2,652,769, and our debt expenditures of $2,640,319. And since we have a fund balance that's real close, but since we have a fund balance of about $231,000, we should be good. When we do that debt levy calculation, we also consider there will be some delinquent properties that we won't collect taxes on right away, and also that leaves us a little bit of room for any tax tribunals that will change our revenue. Okay, so that's just touching on the debt fund. Next, we'll move over to the general fund. Some of our budget challenges, as usual, declining enrollment has been our biggest challenge. We talked about in our budget workshops, our enrollment decline in the last 5 years has been about 340 students, and it's been our biggest hurdle. And we are budgeting for a decrease of enrollment of about 55 FTEs next year. The retirement rate is also something that's an issue. They've done some retirement stabilization, but they haven't quite kept our retirement rate at zero. It's gone up this year. And the state shares in the funding of the unfunded liability portion by providing us 147C and 147D funds, which they give to us through the state aid, and that's based on a percentage of our payroll from the prior year. The district's required to pay for the normal cost increases, and that's what happened this year. We had a normal cost increase of 0.99%, and on a $7 million payroll, that's $70,000. So that's still significant dollars. And then the insurance, health insurance cost, that goes up. Our MESA had an increase of 6.6% roughly this year. We see up 2% of it because that's the consumer price index. That's what the hard cap increases every year. So we see increases in that as well. Next, some of the unknowns. Each year, the ISD determines whether we have a share of the Medicaid funds. For the year ending in 14, we're going to be getting some Medicaid funds, but ongoing, I hear that that's not going to necessarily be the case. So that is not budgeted for next year. Enrollment in kindergarten and other grades, we do our best to predict what those numbers are going to be. They roll off the graduating classes and roll in the new lower kindergarten, but it's, again, not predictable with exactly what the numbers are going to be.
Do we know what the number is for kindergarten right now?
No, I thought Jim was going to be here tonight.
That's what I would have thought too.
I don't know that. To be precise.
Oh, there he is.
Look at that. Jim, we had a question about kindergarten. Do you have any idea where it's at the moment?
58, last year.
And then the next unknown is our ability to meet best practices. And I'm going to talk about the change in best practices for next year. That's changed since we met at the last budget workshop. So I want to go over that a little bit, the criteria. The first 5 of the criteria are the same as they have been in the past, and we haven't had a problem meeting those. The final 4 are different, and we don't have complete guidance on those. So I'm going to read those over and let you know where we think we stand on that. We must meet 7 of 9 criteria, so that's a little bit different also than last year and the years before. The first is we act as a policyholder for healthcare services benefits. Second, competitively bid at least one non-instructional service. Participate in schools of choice. Provide online learning opportunities. And provide public online dashboard with finance and academic metrics. The first one that's different here is comply with school employee compensation determination requirements under MCL 380.1250. And that's a compensation including job performance and accomplishments as factors affected in collective bargaining agreement. So we need to, we haven't had time to go through our collective bargaining agreement to make sure that we're going to be able to meet that. So that's one of them. The next one is comply with the prohibited subjects of bargaining as required under the Public Employment Relations Act. Again, we need to go through our collective bargaining agreement and make sure that we'll be able to meet that criteria. Also implement a comprehensive guidance and counseling program. We believe that we meet that, but I don't know what the guidelines or the requirements are going to be. That's pretty vague, so we're going to have to wait for these guidelines to come out on that. And the last one is to offer pupils in grades K to 8 the opportunity to complete coursework or other learning experiences that are substantially equivalent to 1 credit in a language other than English. We're going to offer another language at the elementary level, but we're not sure if it's in each grade 1 credit or if it's a credit through to 8th grade. We're not sure the guidelines again for that. So I guess the question is, this is in the budget for next year, that we would meet the best practice criteria, but I just want everybody to be aware that it has changed significantly and that we're not as confident that we will be able to meet all of these, although I'm sure we'll do our best to meet 7 of 9. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that there is some change here and when we last talked about budget workshop.
Figure that's 125.
I'm sorry, the dollar amount?
Yeah.
It's about 78,000.
78,000.
So everybody understands what that means? Okay.
Our revenue assumptions are the state revenues are projected based on our 2014 foundation of $7,026 plus a $50 equity payment. They were rolled in together. And there is a foundation increase of $175 per pupil for the minimum foundation districts, for a total of $7,251. We have an assumption of a blended student count of 1,502, remembering that it's 90% of our fall count and then 10% of the following spring count. It used to be the opposite, so it's still kind of an unknown, even once we know our fall numbers, what our spring numbers are. The MITSERS per pupil offset continues at the same level. The Medicaid revenue is uncertain, as we talked about a few minutes ago, and the best practice will be funded at the new criteria. If we look at revenues in total, our local revenues, 18 mills, generates $2,326,106. Other local revenues, which would include fees, tuition, childcare fees, gate receipts, pay to play, that type of revenue is $284,612. State aid foundation is $8,564,896. And other state aid, which would be like best practices and the mixers offset, is $1,174,886. And federal grants, which include IDEA, Title I and Title II, is $847,792 for a total revenue of $13,198,292. That's $87.87 per pupil in total revenue. Now the foundation grant broken down is a projected student FTE of 1,502 students at $72.51 per pupil foundation allowance for a total foundation of $10,891,002. Minus our local revenue that we generate from our 18 mills is $2,326,106. That leaves the state share of $8,564,896. If we look at that in a pie chart, it just shows how dependent we are on the state for funding. 74% of our dollars comes from state. Some expenditure assumptions, these are the things we talked about at our budget workshop. I'll go over those briefly. The half-step increase for the teachers below step 10. Our new hard cap limits, plus taxes on claims. Mesa, we have Mesa Insurance, and Mesa was covering there's a percentage on claims that helps for the Obamacare cover those expenses, and that's charged to it. Mesa was covering those expenses. This year they're passing on 25% of those expenses, those taxes to us, because all of our, anyone who has insurance is over the hard cap, those we in turn pass on to the employees. Other expenditure assumptions: expanded preschool and Great Start Readiness programs, a half-time elementary art position, the reduced walk zone, pay-to-play fees increased to restore the return transportation to athletics, new science lab wing supplies. There's a couple of retirements, positions brought back to the general fund from at-risk because we've used up a lot of our carryover funds this year. And athletic expenditure changes, that was state meet line item, the tournaments line item, those types of things. Expenditures broken down into salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, capital outlay, and other. The total expenditures of $13,589,660. So in a pie chart, you can see that our benefits and salaries are 82% of our budget. So if we take our revenue minus our expenditures, we'll have a shortfall of $391,368, projecting a fund equity on June 30th of 2015 of $805,332, or 5.93%. So, and you know, we'll have amendment in the meantime, so things could possibly change in those years over the course of the year. And that's all I have for commission questions.
Question for Jim, that 58 students, would that reduce classes? We have 3 classes right now, right, for kindergarten? 4?
Yeah, good question, and I apologize, I started to miss the, babysitters and all, we couldn't leave without one. It looks like right now, Mr. Clerk, there will be 3 sections of kindergarten instead of 4, unless something happens that is not typical.
Anybody else? Good. Anybody else? Thanks, Vicki. Okay. That adjourns our budget hearing. agenda as presented.
So move. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, our True Blue moment this evening. We start with our Richmond Education Foundation. This evening, the Richmond Education Foundation is awarding its annual mini grants. Tracy?
Thank you, President. It's good to stand over here. Be on this side for a little bit. For those of you that maybe don't know the history of the foundation, I'll share a little bit about that briefly, but we're a new organization. In fact, we've only been around for about 2.5 years. So that's a baby for a 501c3 organization. And we were created out of a spin-off out of the marketing committee that began a few years ago here of the board. Was really wanting. There were a few of us who just were super wanting to get the word out about all the great things that are happening in classrooms and programs at Richmond Community Schools. And so knowing that there are lots of districts in the area that have these foundations who are helping, because we as board members certainly knew the financial struggles that were happening at the district level. So we knew that we needed to tap into some alumni, some business, some community members, and get help, financial help. And we also just wanted to make a statement about let's support kids. Let's support them and support all that they do. And so we found some amazing community members who are willing to volunteer their time to be the board of directors for this foundation. And we have been working, like I said, for about 2.5 years to make some good things happen. So this is our second year of awarding scholarships and also awarding grants. And the thank you list is really quite long. To say thank you to all the people that have donated money to this organization would take way too long, so I won't do that. But our work, like I said, at this 501c3 focuses on fundraising money to provide these scholarships. We gave 5 in May to graduated seniors, award these grants to enhance student programs, and provide money for overall district needs. The foundation board, which I'm not sure, doesn't look like there's other board members here this evening, but Margaret is on the board. There will always be a seat on our, according to our bylaws, for the board president or a representative of the board. Dr. Olson was at her last meeting of the foundation board in May, but there will always be a seat on the board for the superintendent. So Mr. Walmsley will soon have a seat on that board with us. I am on the board, and so is Sue Boyd, and so is Julie Klozinski, and Bernie Telto, and John Foster, and
Mark Mackley was.
Mark Mackley was, and so was Brian Hankey, who's a former board member, have also served on the board. And I have to say that I just found out, as Becky Warwick pointed out to me, we had a bit of a glitch in our application process this year. So there are evidently some grant applications out there that our grant committee has not yet seen. So there are 5 or 6 educators out there, school employees out there who are like, what's going on with our grant? And I just have to say I'm so sorry because of this glitch. We will make it right by those 5 or 6 of you that are out there. We will read your grant applications and we will do all that we can to make it right for whatever creative ideas we brought forward. Please don't feel neglected. We'll make it right. We really will. But I'm going to start with those folks who applied for grants at Lee Elementary. I'm going to start with those folks. And Ann Thirst continues to build and grow the Lego Club after-school program. And this grant that she will be awarded will fund 1
junior first LEGO League robotics team for the 2014-15 school year. This will be a 6-person team that will work for an intense 8-week period. This group will experience team building activities, research using various forms of media, learn about simple machines and the engineering process, and practice presentation skills. This will be a collaborative effort because the high school robotics team has already offered to help and assist her with the elementary kids doing this same work. So what a great thing. So Anne, congratulations. The second grant recipient at Lee is Kim Krieger, who is receiving a grant, but she is a representative of a committee, from what I understand, right, at Lee. And this grant is to begin a fund to purchase banners that will hang at Lee. And they will be banners that will list expected behaviors of the kids in that school. So this comes from the Positive Behavior Intervention and Support Committee. And these banners will say blue on them. And so they will be respectful, they will live responsibly, they will use caution, and it's a place where everyone belongs. Blue will be there. So they will act as a consistent reinforcement and to help students feel safe, welcome, and successful both academically and socially. Teresa Ranger is a first grade teacher at Lee, and she is receiving a grant tonight to purchase a year subscription for Time Magazine for Kids, 1 copy for every student in her classroom, and also a set of highlighters. She intends to use the guided highlight technique to advance her students' reading comprehension and support the national standards for reading informational text. Tammy Wilson is receiving a grant to purchase Sight Read tactile cards to be used to touch and trace letters and words, Sight Read Words Challenge game, Sight Word Steps, the map for kids to have fun with and walk and read at the same time, and search for Sight Word game. Mrs. Wilson teaches in the resource room that services students in kindergarten through 3rd grade by intervening to boost reading skills. In this classroom, she works to support math skills too. The grant monies will also purchase a game called Math Quiz Interactive Game Show that will help growth in addition, subtraction, money, time, mental math, and more. This will be used with some of the new technology to come into her classroom and can be used also on the smart board. All of these enhancements will work with our current curriculum. Tammy, congratulations. The foundation awards 5 grants to the middle school. Kyle Bartels will be receiving 2 grants this evening. The first will purchase a classroom set of what is now a standard in youth literature, The Outsiders. This is a Newbery Award-winning novel and is, as Kyle puts it, an anchor text in the narrative reading genre unit for the 8th grade. In examining the current copies that the district owns, the wear and tear and use is obvious, and to put it, they're kind of beyond repair. So this additional 30 copies will allow for students to take home a copy and complete reading assignments and activities. Kyle is also receiving a grant because she is the leader, the mentor of the National Junior Honor Society. And thank her the next time we see her for reviving that. It's an important thing for us to have. The second grant that she receives purchases the podium banner, the special candles, and the table drape that are used during the very special induction ceremony. For those of you that have witnessed this ceremony, you know that there are some specific rituals and symbolisms that happen, and so these things will enrich that and bring more meaning to the great honor of being included in that elite group of National Junior Honor Society. Congratulations, Kyle. And Jacqueline Davis is one of RCS's visual art educators. With the change in schedule at RMS from a 6-period to a 7-period day, Ms. Davis is able to offer more choices in the art education area. The curriculum expansion will allow students to take 2D art and 3D art as semester-long classes. With this expansion, the need arises for more supplies for middle school students to achieve curricular objectives in areas like painting and sculpture. The grant will add $200 into the art department's budget so that these additions may be purchased. Congratulations. And Christine Nolan, a 6th grade teacher, will be receiving a grant from the foundation for a 2nd year. This year, a classroom set of calculators will be purchased with the money. Mrs. Nolan's current set is, well, at least 12 years old, she said. So as Chris says in her application, the 6th grade Common Core math curriculum stresses the importance of process skills and providing real-life experience for students, and these calculators will be a part of that active learning for all 6th grade students. Congratulations, Chris. And our last middle school grant goes to Michelle Schomer. She is receiving a grant, I think, for a 2nd year in a row too, right? Michelle's applied to cover the cost of a classroom set of the novel The Giver. This novel is read by all 7th grade English language arts students, and this book is specifically chosen by staff as they examine the curricular needs when mapping through the Atlas curriculum mapping program. This text fits in the narrative reading genre unit, and these new copies will replace the well-used and well-loved copies that the district owns, offer students the ability to take the book home, and provide more flexibility with book usage for the staff. So congratulations, happy New Year. And the high school is receiving 1 grant this evening. Margie Solden is a paraprofessional who works in the Resource Support Center here in this building. There are 50 to 75 students that utilize the extra support offered in this room. Primarily, homework support and test proctoring are the ways students are helped here. This classroom also allows for students that may need some extra one-on-one time to get just the necessary time to understand any given assignment. The grant money awarded will be spent on motivational tools that the leaders of this program will purchase and use as incentives and rewards. Gift cards to area merchants, such as McDonald's, Subway, the Dairy Queen, BP gas station, will be purchased. And these will be given out as a reward for those students who turn in all their assignments and bring up their grades. Extrinsic motivation, Dairy Queen looks great, speaks loudly to some students. And so thank you so much, Mrs. Solden, for making this happen. Congratulations. So, those are the ones I have to hand out this evening, but like I said, more. There's to be continued with those other grant applications. But this award that I gave out this evening totals just over $1,800. And this year, I think I have figured out that every lead student will benefit, that there will be over 300 students in the middle school who will benefit and be touched. And like I said, 50 to 75 students here in the high school. So thanks so much to the many generous community members. And this comes from one event, the Royal Gala event, dinner and auction event that we had last October. And we intend to have another one tweaked and made better than last year. That will be Saturday, September 13th. Please get in touch with me if you're interested in attending at all so that you can be a part of the good work of this organization as we continue to grow and continue to support kids and professional educators.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you for your leadership, because without you, it would have never got started in the first place, and it wouldn't be where it is today, so thank you. Next, as everyone sitting here knows, Dr. Olson is retiring, and tonight is her last board meeting with us. And as we do in Richmond, when you leave us, when you retire and leave us, we give you a bell and ring, ring, ring. And on the bell, it says, Linda Olson, Superintendent, 4 years, oh, look at me pulling it away so I can read it, Lord. 4 years of dedicated service, June 2014, from the Richmond Board of Education. Dr. Olson, we thank you very much for all you've done for Richmond schools. And on behalf of the board, we wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to thank the community and the staff and the administrative team and our Board of Education. It's just been a real pleasure working in this district. It's not been an easy decision as to when to retire. Every time I start thinking about it, well, maybe just a little bit longer, you know. But there comes a time when sometimes you need some fresh energy too, and it's really been a pleasure being here. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Next, our public comments. This is the portion of our meeting. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board, they can do so. Come up to the podium. We just ask that you give us your name, and if there is a question that you would like answered, there should be a card up there that you can leave your name and telephone number, and someone will get back with you. Is there anyone that would like to address the board this evening? No? Okay. Next, items of interest from members of the board. Anyone? Yeah, okay. Tracy?
We have, I don't think we have been together since the butterfly event.
No, we have
took
not.
place. We haven't, right? And so I was not able to be there. But I got to see pictures on Facebook, and I got to see the amazing news clips that happened and were presented about that event. And I don't know when I've been so proud of this community of educators, the community of students coming together and remembering and helping one another heal the loss. And it was just beautiful. And like I said, I wasn't even able to be here and be present, but I'm saddened that it had to happen, but at the same time, it was a beautiful way to honor her. So thank you to everyone who led that, made sure that it happened, because it was a beautiful thing.
I agree, and I was able to be there, and it was very moving, and it was an amazing thing to see all the students and the staff to be able to be there and to share that, and it was a wonderful thing to be a part of. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That time of the year, I got the invitation for the Little Days Festival Parade.
Okay.
So, turning on you, is something we need to figure out if we're going to do the little school bus again, or what the game plan is. So, I mean, it's what, 76 days away, I think.
What?
So, it's never too early to start thinking about it.
I say we're doing it. Why stop now?
Right.
And I'm sure our new superintendent sitting in that front row, I bet he can't wait to hear all about it, so.
Well, last year we had talked about maybe, you getting on a unicycle or something and passing out with pencils. And
Oh, is
stuff like
that what we talked about?
Yes.
Oh, I don't remember that, but I think the new superintendent on a unicycle is a great idea. We'll write that down.
There was chat, at one time, one of the bus drivers wanted all of us to dye our hair blue for that event as well.
Yeah, I see her sitting right there nodding her head up and down too.
Yeah, so-
I vaguely remember
All kinds
that
of good things can
conversation,
happen
yes. But yeah, absolutely. We're in.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Next, committee reports. Budget and finance. You want me to do? Bridget?
Yeah, you took notes.
Yeah, I did. We met on the 16th, and we basically went over the items for the budget hearing tonight, went over the bills, the information that Vicky's going to give us tonight at the meeting, the state aid note, debt levy, the steamers information for the food service department tonight. That was just about it. Real fast, efficient meeting. Yeah, it really was. Yes.
49.
Not to say because some people weren't there or anything, but it was very efficient. It went very quickly. Next, approval of consent agenda items.
On your consent agenda items, I have a recommendation for a hire for the high school art position, and that's Veronica Russell-Bell. I believe she's here.
Hello.
Veronica brings us 14 years of experience teaching art. She has a master's in art from Wayne State University and a Bachelor of Art from Central Michigan University, and I know the interview committee was very impressed with the artwork that she brought and her range of expertise, and I think she's really going to be a strong teacher for our already strong program and just bring more strength to it. So we're very excited to have you here, Veronica. I think she was here the day after we spoke, visiting the classroom and trying to figure out what's there and how she's going to want to make it. So welcome to Richmond.
Excellent. Good to hear you. That's it. That's it?
I think so.
There's two.
Oh, the other person couldn't be here tonight. I'll introduce her next time.
Okay.
If that's okay. She had a doctor's appointment with her mother. Couldn't be here today.
Okay. Is that like her sitting right there in the front row?
I think that's recorded.
Okay. Okay. All right, then a motion would be in order to approve the consent agenda items as presented, and there are closed session minutes included.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the add-on of the closed session. Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Give me, pass back the closed minutes. Next, we move to our administrative items. First, the 13-14 general fund final budget and 14-15 general fund original budget. Vicki?
First look at the budget summary, and I'll direct your attention, you haven't seen the packet.
Mm-hmm.
Not this exact slide, but you have to see the packet. The third and fourth slide, so the final budget for 2013-14 and the original 14-15. Beginning fund equity for 13-14 was $1,428,547. We ended the year with a blended count of 1,559 students, foundation allowance, base foundation allowance of $7,026, and total revenues of $13,409,020. Total expenditures are estimated to be $13,640,857. First year's not over yet, so those will be adjusted, and we'll have final numbers after the August audit. And we'll get that plan. So that's a shortfall of $231,847. I expect that to improve when the audit comes through. We are not allowed to spend over what's appropriated, so I leave a little bit of room at the end of the year for those final expenditures that haven't come in yet, or for any emergency things that might be spent, and then once the audit comes, that number will be lower, so that'll be less of a shortfall after the audit. So this is a fund equity of $1,196,700, or 8.77%. I moved that number forward into our 14-15 budget year with an estimated FTE count of 1,502 students, foundation allowance of $7,251, total revenues of $13,198,292, and total expenditures of $13,589,660, for shortfall of $391,368, leaving us with a potential fund equity of $805,332, or 5.93%. Revenue and expenditure changes from the amended budget. We received some additional Medicaid funds from the ISD. We spoke about that at the budget workshop. Gate receipts, pay to play, childcare fees exceeded the amendment, so those were increases to the revenues. We budget all our grants to full expense, so we say that all the revenues are going to be realized in this year and all the expenses in this year. Of course, we know that doesn't always happen that way, so we will have some carryover into the following year, but we want the grants to be neutral when we expend take revenue. Each expenditure line item is reviewed, and I try to bring the budget number down a little bit, or closer, tighten it up, but knowing that we will have few expenditures between now and the end of the year. So the projected revenue for 14-15, local revenues at $2,610,718. State revenues of $9,739,782. Federal revenues of $830,183, and interdistrict sources $15,000. Transfers, fund modifications of $2,609, for total revenues of $13,198,292. The projected revenues for 14-15 show a decrease in the funded student count, as we discussed before, a $7,251 foundation allowance. Our mixer offset per pupil cost continues from state aid. Medicaid revenue is uncertain, so it's not budgeted for. And the best practice funded with the new criteria, as we talked about earlier in the budget hearing, $78,104. That is in the budget. I won't go over the best practice criteria again unless you would like to hear it again. The first 5 items are items that we have seen year after year, and the final 4 are those that we just received notice of what the criteria were. We haven't received the guidelines, so we're not certainly how we're going to meet those, but we will look into that and of course we will do our best to meet those criteria. The projected 14-15 expenditures are broken down into instructional programs, $8,351,120. Supporting services, $5,025,876. Community services, $60,064. And outgoing transfers of $152,600. The total expenditures of $13,589,660. Items in the expenditures for 14-15, again, as we discussed in our budget workshops, are the half-step increases for teachers below step 10, the new hard cap limits, expanded preschool and Great Start Readiness program, our half-time elementary art position, the reduced walk zone, and pay-to-play fees increase to restore the return transportation for athletic events. We had a couple of retirements, Dr. Stewart and Hannah Green in there. New science lab wing supplies, those couldn't be bonded for. Positions brought back into general fund from at-risk, and athletic expenditure changes. Those were some supplies and tournament fees and, the state meets, or the state meets are funded. And the final slide is our fund equity, with revenue of $13,198,292, expenditures of $13,589,660, which is with a shortfall of $391,368, for a projected fund equity of $805,332, or 5.93% at the end of 14. Any questions?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
So you mentioned the 2 retirements that are included within this, but the other 2 that are on our...
Yes, I did not, because at the time,
Right.
I could move this budget many times.
Sure.
And there's this point where I just said,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
I've got to
sure.
cut it off and we'll stop there. But yes, those will be incorporated in the next amendment.
I see.
And where does that come into play, though? I mean, what's the,
Well, right now, our kindergarten enrollment is lower than projected too, so that's going to likely adjust the number that is in the budget. So right now, we're planning to absorb that additional retirement that we just received. But one of the things is Vicki has to publish the budget that we are
Right.
intending to in advance of this
Mhm.
meeting by about 10 days, so.
right? Okay. And then the tournament, the tournament funding, I think we asked at the budget hearing, we were supposed to,
Reduced it by 2,000, that was my understanding. It was 12,000 and we reduced it by 2,000.
is that what it was? Okay.
That's how I.
Okay. Okay. I didn't remember that, okay.
And the AD is gonna figure out how to do that. That's up to him.
Yes, right. We didn't have the specific.
Right.
We just
guidelines, how
dropped that
he's
amount,
gonna
okay.
distribute that.
Yep, okay. Okay. And so then we're just gonna, with this best practice stuff, then, we've got the $78,000 hanging out there. So we're gonna,
Do everything
Keep
possible
our
to make
fingers
sure
crossed
we get
that-
paid that money.
Well, that and we need to work, but, yeah, that's just one of the things, but we will definitely, but we have to have the guidelines, we can't,
right,
until we know what the specifics are that qualify for those categories. We can't afford.
And I know I can predict the answer to this, but those guidelines would come to us quickly, not so quickly.
of course not.
If
Or-
districts start asking for that, then the MDE does put those guidelines. It doesn't take too long. It'll probably be the fall before we'll know specifically.
Okay.
But every district will be asking for that, and the district.
The same questions.
They're going to be asking the same questions. And before they can give us the best practice money, they're going to have to say, you do qualify or you don't, and they'll have to determine those guidelines. So.
Right. And things like the one that references, doesn't it reference law? And
Mhm.
those kinds of things, do we would already have that information? Or do we really need the MDE to tell us? I guess what I'm saying, we already know what that law is, so we
Well-
can determine or not.
Are you talking about that employee compensation?
Oh, right.
Well, yeah, but that one, we don't have any money to comply with that one, right?
Well, I think Dr. Olson had thought we could get creative somehow. And
Okay.
I think there'll be further discussion at the Macomb Superintendent's meeting about some different ideas that other districts have used, maybe. I mean, it's kind of unrealistic in some ways for them to pass a law in this vein when we continue to have cuts. So there's no new money to hand out
Right.
in that way. I know some, districts have had some criteria in which they, like Oscoda has had a set of criteria for how they have given out merit raises for a few years. But it hasn't been something that's been discussed a lot by a number of districts because everyone is just always struggling to how to get through another year with continued cuts and declining enrollment, which is affecting just about every district in the state. There are very few that have grown the last few years as there's been so much out migration out of the state of Michigan. So it may be that we can work with our union and, other people may come up with some ideas that don't have a high cost factor but might be some type of recognition of merit until there are monies available to begin to shift it to some type of merit pay, or Lansing comes up with another design.
So we have
Keep the
to,
communication going, as we learn.
so we, of the four, we have to be able to meet two of the four.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we've got to figure out $78,000. That makes me nervous. I don't know about anybody else, but.
I think a little nervousness is in order on it. I mean, when they ask how you're going to meet a credit, a foreign language at kindergarten, those of us that read that looked at each other and said, we're not sure what that means or looks like. So if it's earn a credit by the end of 8th grade over the course of that many years, that's one thing, but not sure how you earn credits at kindergarten.
Anybody else have any questions for Vicki? Okay, then a motion would be in order.
I move to approve the general fund 2013-2014 final budget and a 2014-15 original budget as presented.
Work.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any other discussion? Okay, excuse me, I'll do a roll call. Andy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
I vote no. Motion carries. And I voted no, just so everyone understands, because I wish we had done some better stuff in our budget hearing, so we weren't worrying about that $78,000 right now, just so everybody knows that's why I voted no. Next one, Vicki.
Okay, food service appropriation. You have the appropriations before you. If we look at the center column, which is the final budget for the 13-14 year, you see that we're spending a good amount of the fund balance, $63,000 of the fund balance. And the reason being is that, number one, the MDE requires that we don't have more than 3 months expenses in fund balance, so we can't exceed that. So we start spending that on the food service. We had some significant repairs that needed to be made on the middle school cooler and some of the other equipment. So we chose to do that. We also had a indirect cost transfer to the general fund. It's been a couple of years since we transferred money from the food service to the general fund, but it should be sharing in the cost of the things that we do provide, like the heat and some of those costs can be incorporated into the food service budget. So we transfer $15,000 from there. But if you look at the next year with our new program where we're going to be using the shared food service director, that will help our food service program a great deal. And we should see it will operate in the black next year. And we still have a significant fund balance of over $55,000. So that leaves the food service with some room to make more repairs or do purchasing things if need be.
Any questions for Vicki? No? A motion would be in order?
Move to approve the 2013-14 final food service fund budget in the 2014-15 original food service fund budget as presented.
Support.
Okay, it has been moved and supported. Any discussion? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Rob?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, debt fund. Vicki?
As we discussed in our budget hearing, the debt fund balance will be approximately $231,671 at the end of this year. And next year, we will levy 5.6 mils to generate $2.6 million to pay our debt obligations. And at the end of 2014-15 year, we'll have added slightly to our fund balance and projected to be $244,121.
Okay, any questions? There's a sample resolution.
I move to approve the 2013-14 final debt fund budget and the 2014-2015 original debt fund budget as presented.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Do a roll call. Tracy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, cash flow borrowing.
Each year, our district borrows money from the Michigan Finance Authority in anticipation of a cash shortfall during the fiscal year. And this cash is needed because our operations start in July, and we don't receive our first state aid payment until October. So we have a lot of catching up to do. So the district doesn't receive its first of the 11 payments in October. And since the district's been in operation and paying expenses since July 1st, this creates a need for the cash to meet payroll and other expenses. And this year, the district will need to borrow $1,800,000. I put a statement in there that as was last year, and that's not correct. We borrowed $1,600,000 last year. The more we use fund balance, the greater the need for the cash flow borrowing, the increase in the cash flow borrowing ongoing. So I just want to make that correction too. There's also a disclosure in your packet from True Law that they also represent, they provide legal services to the placement agent for the Michigan Finance Authority State Aid Note Program. And they're just disclosing that so you know what businesses that they also and you have the cash flow sheet also.
Okay. There's a sample resolution.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing issuance of notes in anticipation of state school aid for $1,800,000 through the Michigan Finance Authority State Aid Note Program.
Support.
Is that you, Rob?
Yes.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Doesn't it say on here how much it costs us to do that?
Yeah, not on there, it doesn't particularly, but it cost about $20,000 last year. Depends on the rate, and we don't know the rate until August. They don't issue the rate until.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Andy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Bridget? Dan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries.
Someone please do something about school funding. Someone please. Make this one, the way we do it now.
That'll never happen. Next, food service steamers purchase. Vicki?
Okay, in the bond budget proposal, we have a line item for, it was established for $20,000. It wasn't specific to what item we would purchase, but Sue Bevins would like to purchase 3 boilerless convection steamers, one for each kitchen for the food service program. You have to ask me what a boilerless convection steamer does. But attached are the 3 quotes from vendors that we, for the same model that the middle school's been using on a trial basis for the last few months. And the quotes are from Stafford Smith, HPS, and Gold Star Products. Sue reviewed the quotes, and Stafford Smith was the lowest quote for $17,357, so we'd like to purchase those 3 steamers for the food service program out of the bond fund.
Okay. There's a sample resolution, but where it says convention, I believe the word should be convection for whoever does the, the motion.
I approve the purchase of 3 convection steamers from Stafford Smith, Inc. for $17,357 from the bond fund. Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion or questions?
So I assume this was the greatest need right away, was these?
I'm sorry. This was the greatest need right away for,
Yes, it allows us to steam vegetables and some frozen and non-frozen items. It's more efficient way to do it. It's also faster and provides some quality.
Anybody else? Do a roll call. Tracy?
Aye.
Bridget? Andy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. You can sit down, Vicki.
You sure you want to give up the podium?
Okay, next, our second reading of the Student Parent Handbook.
This is not highlighted like it was online.
Would you like a highlighted copy?
Oh, look at you, Terry. There. Anyone else want a highlighted one? Jeff, you want a highlighted one?
Good evening.
Hello.
How are you? Happy summer. Thank you. I'm just going to go through item by item. Is that the
Well,
procedure we like to do, or?
how about if we do this, since you already went through everything the first time, why don't we, if you don't mind, why don't we do, if anyone on the board has parts of it that they'd like to bring up to to talk about, let's do that rather than go through every single item unless everyone wants to go through every single item again.
No, we used to have pretty good the first time, correct? I mean, there's no changes from the first reading, right? Okay.
Well, there was, there's one grammatical on the last item, it was an elementary change for the standard-based grading.
Mm-hmm.
It should read K4, and it read K5, and it was just off when we were
Oh,
reviewing
okay.
it. So that would be the only thing you didn't see with the last one.
Okay. So, I guess let's start. Does anyone have something that they'd like to discuss or ask a question about?
I think the last time when we had this in front of us and we talked about the backpack policy, we discussed about the fact that backpacks are allowed in physical education class for obvious reasons. Can you just explain why band is allowed to? And if that was mentioned before, it sort of went in my own
It was mainly for instruments. So we consider their case if they let it carry in the backpack.
Hard for the answer to fit in the backpack, just to let you know, but if they play the piccolo, maybe, but, so that, I just find that to be an interesting choice, but, good.
And I know, John, that the last time too, there was conversation about the gym class and the students going into gym class and their backpacks weren't searched or looked at, if you will. They just went in, and I know that you talked about the backpacks were being the reason behind the policy, safety and all of that. So I know that at least I had a question with, if we're letting them bring the backpacks into the gym but we're not checking them, there's a safety problem. So I guess where's that fallen into play into
I think
the...
there's an issue with, reasonable suspicion where I stand in terms of searching a kid's backpack. We'll absolutely do that. But as of right now with our procedures, we're allowing the backpack to be carried to the gym where they can change. We're aware of the classes. We know what classes, what classrooms are coming out, what hours they have gym classes. But as of right now, we really haven't thought of a better way to do it for gym classes in terms of how they're going to get their clothing. Now, some schools, they simply say you just can't have a backpack, and you have to carry your clothing, gym shoes, shorts, t-shirt, inner gland into the school building. But as of right now, this is kind of where we're standing at it. It's something we can look at next year, and we can adjust it as we go. Safety is one issue, and the other issue we talked about is the clutterness of the hallway, of the classrooms, and that really eliminates that and really helps us in that factor.
All right. I just think we might be if we're talking about safety and we're not.
So you're looking at a stricter policy?
No, I'm not telling you the policy.
No,
I'm just saying, if we've got a policy, but we're not checking them when they go into the gym with it, I think we're defeating the purpose of saying that we're having our backpacks. We're not having backpacks for safety. I'm just throwing that out there too.
No, I understand.
That's all I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I understand.
I'm just having conversation, I'm just saying that. I do appreciate the memo that we got from Mr. Ladd and the explanation, because I know that we had concern with the parent and how all that went down. So I know that we do appreciate that we kind of got the whole picture on everything with that. But I'm just concerned, and I agree too, I don't really know an instrument that can be put into a backpack other than a piccolo, like Tracy said. I think that's like a flute thing or something. But, so I don't know. That's just my thought on it. And then the only other thing myself that I had that made me cringe was the whole, the food service, the whole meal thing, kids that don't have a lunch and having to go to the office and call and don't have their, money on the account and all that kind of stuff. That makes me crazy. And I think we've got to do, I really hate that being a policy, and being something where a kid gets called out or is the center of attention that they don't have money in their account. I think we just really need to find a different way of handling that rather than making it a policy.
I don't see that that's written into the policy. That might be the practice.
No charging is allowed at Richmond Middle School. Students will be sent to the office to call a parent. There it is, right in the policy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about K-4. I'm sorry. Because of that feedback we had the prior time.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're willing to change. I don't know if we can something different.
Yeah, so I myself, I would have a real hard time tonight saying that I'm good with a second reading with that in there. I just really think we got to do something different because everybody's situations are different and it's embarrassing for a kid.
We have discussed maybe putting a phone in there in the kitchen area, so that way the student's not being thinking about they can make a quick call. Because it eliminates that one step of having to come down to the office, provide a little privacy for the student, but, there's another idea out there we're willing to listen. It's really food service conversation, I don't know. Well, there are issues with allowing unlimited charging, with collection, MDE has regulations, or USDA has regulations regarding charging, carryovers might be able to the subject schools not allow those costs not be absorbed by food services and covered by general funds. So, we discussed in the person that there are issues like allowing unlimited charging at all levels. There are grants and the policy that income services I cannot know. Really encourages students to become more responsible as they get older and in advance through, from elementary to middle to high, to get more responsibility to make sure that they can follow
That's all well and good, but if there's no money at home for a sack lunch, and that's wonderful.
Yeah, we're handing out the free and reduced applications,
And they have to fill it out. Yep, they do.
And there's a lot of stigma.
And a lot of them
There's a lot
don't.
of shame involved in filling out those forms.
Yeah,
So we can sit and talk about poverty, and we can sit and talk about that for a long time, and I know that's a rather extensive conversation. The point is that kids can't learn if they don't have a meal.
Absolutely.
So it has nothing to do with MDE and all that. Are we, as a community, are we going to make a statement that says that kids can have food because they need it to learn? Or are we going to force them to go through some hoops? And I'm not okay with hoops. I'm okay with saying kids need food to learn, no matter what.
Absolutely.
So
I totally agree. I really would encourage our students to eat more breakfast than they do. I really love to do breakfast in the classroom, but some of those programs are difficult for parents, and we have low cream juice rates, which is what we have for the board. Considered a low cream juice rate, which is whatever policy the board wants to implement, just keeping in mind that there is cost involved with that, general fund expenses involved with that. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of what those regulations are. We will certainly consider support any policy that the board wants. I can say when the students do come to the office, they do a supplemental thing, we give them an old bar, a bag of pretzels, and water, so we do try to help out anyone that we come up with.
I would like to comment too for the public's information that the free and reduced lunch forms are confidential. They're not shared beyond the food service director, and that they do provide us with other resources for the district. Our title funds and several other grants are based on our free and reduced rate. So if people qualify, and that helps to have our free and reduced rate a little bit more reflective of what our actual student body is and a little higher, that brings in other resources as not just the lunch or the breakfast.
Parents can fill that form out online as well. So if there's concern with sending a paper form to schools and students with information on it, there is a website that's available that they can use from the local library for free to fill out that form online. And then I'm the only person that sees it. And even when we release funds for Title I or installations of Title I, it's normally really got no information about it.
And I don't even think the conversation that I wanted to get into had anything to do with anybody divulging any kind of information. I wasn't going down that road at all. My issue was, I didn't like what the word said in this policy. That's really all it was. I wasn't saying anybody was doing anything they weren't supposed to do. I didn't like what this said, plain and simple. But again,
Do you have language you'd like to propose?
I sure don't. But if no one else thinks that way, if I'm out on an island or Tracy's on the island with me, and if everyone else thinks it's okay, we can move.
Didn't
We can
talk
move
about
forward.
maybe seeing if there's anybody in the community or, a restaurant or something that wanted to sponsor those kids? I mean, I think it wasn't a big amount, a dollar amount.
I think we tossed that out sitting here at this table. Yes.
Yeah, so I think we asked last time, like, how big of a problem is it? Yeah, between.
I'll be honest with you, at lunchtime, we're down in the lunchroom, so, I get feedback from the secretary in regards to kids that come down and call, and I do think that there's a stigma issue with it. I'm willing to any other ideas where they don't have to come to the office, but, Sue asked if they come down and call, so we are just trying to work with food service.
Sure,
and
I get
coming
it.
up with,
Mhm.
so the parents are communicating with us what the issues are, but we're more than willing to come up with a different solution.
In my own mind, any solution I try to come up with is going to put more burden on administration. I mean, do you call the parent? Does administration call the parent when you're less than $2 balance, or if we're waiting until it's zero balance, then it automatically causes someone to go to the office. So, give them a 3-strike policy, or I know it's a parent's inherent responsibility to pay that, and it's easy to do, but life gets in the way. Mom and dad have things to do at home, they have work, and baseball game, life gets in the way, and someone just forgets to pay it. It's simple to do. If it was 1 or 2 strikes, somewhere, administration needs to know if there's a concurrent problem, not just, hey, someone forgot. So I don't know how we change the language, so it immediately isn't a problem where someone's going to march down to the office. So if we could come up with something like that, that might be more amenable to the board.
And I don't want to speak to the police department, I don't know if they're willing to maybe do charges, and then after the third time they come to the office, I'm open to whatever's best for kids.
If you're talking about 3 total per year, there's no way for us to monitor that and see what we do. There's no way in terms of, how many times they charge. We can look at a current balance and say, we can't at one time do more than 3 months with the deficit, but to say over the course of a year, you're allowed to do it 3 times, there's no way for us.
Yeah, I'm really looking at concurrence. And then you don't have the child running to the office and just, I'm just looking for some help on how we could do that as a process and be more fruitful than sending a kid down to the office.
Well, how about if we do this? How about if we put a big X through this, and they can figure out something or come up with some ideas, but we'll put an X through this, that this isn't how we want to do it, and they can figure out something.
Come up with another recommendation.
Yes.
The one thing is, this does need to go to the printer to be available for the fall for the middle school.
Well, it can.
I guess my question, Margaret, is it just no charging and then we can come up with the system, or do you want the whole paragraph?
Yeah. Like if we just took out students will be sent to the office, call
Is
the
that the
parent,
part
if we
that you'd like
deleted that.
We can come up with a different way to handle if students don't have.
Well, in my
contact?
opinion, the whole thing is terrible. Sorry, but
No.
you asked me. So I think the whole thing is terrible and should just be started over with it. Take that out. To me, everything else, my vote is everything else sounds good.
I mean, we can send a letter, we can do the, take that out, and we can send a letter.
You can do your handbook with everything, you just don't have the meal charging policy in your handbook,
That's fine.
right?
Will that work?
Yeah,
Is it okay?
It does have to be a public board policy for MDD requirements. They are requiring that you have that each district have a board policy in order to that's why we're looking for.
Okay, well then, you can come up with something and can bring it in August, and can it be in addition to the handbook?
I don't think they require it that it be published in the handbook.
There we go.
There be a published notice.
There you go,
And it's the website.
there you go.
Do you want the high school one to do it?
Yep. I mean, is everyone else all right with that?
Yes.
As I'm speaking, yes?
You can pay for,
Yeah.
or do you just want everything out for now, and we can send letters and get building at the beginning of this week?
I think you just should cross everything out.
Done.
Tell me again, how much is a lunch? How much is one?
For the 13-14 school year in elementary lunch is $2.30. Middle school lunch is $2.65. And high school lunch is $2.75. We are requiring to be accredited to by USDA for 14 years old. I've made some with that for the one
Okay, first, I just want to have a question about high school. Is this an issue for high school students as well? I'm sorry, I'm looking at it. Because I just remember when I was in high school, my mom would give me money and I would choose to spend it elsewhere. I'm just saying. I feel like high school, that's kind of more of your responsibility as a student. That's just where I'm coming from. I just remember as a high school student, I was given money. It was my choice to use it or not. And sometimes I would not and keep them. Let's be honest, I know how high school kids think, and I just don't know if that's going to create a bigger issue for high school.
Maybe.
Because, yeah, that's where I don't know. I don't agree with you with high school. Middle school, it can go either way. I mean, I can see an alternative if they don't have money in their account. What we do at our school is we offer them an alternative. If you don't have money, you can have this, choice B, which is a granola bar, cheese sandwich, or things like that. And it's their responsibility to go home, tell mom and dad, if I want the full meal, I need to pay. Kind of putting the responsibility back on some of the parents.
Because kids feel good though. Sitting at the table, they have something different than everybody else. What's going to happen there? Probably not happy.
I can see at elementary, I agree with you, Tracy, but at middle and high school, I do think that kids need to take more responsibility for some things. I don't think it should be, oh, you don't have money in your account, go away. We offer them something else, and, you know, I don't know, just something to think about, because I just can see this becoming a huge problem, where kids, yeah, let's just charge a meal, and I don't know, it's just.
I would prefer for the administration to come up with as a board, I think we want to untie your hands. Figure out how you want to do this, but you need to come back and say, hey, here's what we'd like to do. And give yourselves the largest latitude, but yet solve the problem.
I haven't had a lot of dealings with this personally. You know, I'm there to observe. I don't really interfere with the lunch program, the purchases and all that. What I can say is it's really not an issue from what I've seen in high school. We've had certain incidents where if a new student happened to, show up that day, they have money, things like that, we made exceptions. But in terms of, kids are really resourceful for high school. Some don't eat, some go to college, some are there for only 3 hours, they grab a pizza on their way in, Jimmy John's comes to the front door. So they're very resourceful. Some kids just choose not to eat. So in terms of a kid coming up to me and being hungry, I have to say I haven't seen it this entire year.
We had a district-wide committee with representation from the different buildings on it, and that was sort of the line of the discussion. It really hasn't been that big a problem here, and this is kind of how it's been operating now.
people who live in poverty find really interesting ways to mask what's really going on in their lives. So we may say that there's not a problem, but it's probably not really what's going on when 1 in 5 children in this country are hungry. That's the statistic. They are food insecure, 1 in 5. So if that's the statistic for the country, that's here, it's present, it's here in Richmond. So,
So how do we address the problem without singling folks out? If they don't want to come to someone to address the problem. That's the issue at hand. I mean, I don't know how to put that in a board policy. That's the challenge.
Well, there are creative ways to do it, and I don't think that we have to sit here and discuss and try to figure it out. I think there are a lot of creative ways that it could be done, and I think if we take this out and do something different with a policy, that in this community we would be able to find creative ways to help the food service department in that situation and not cost the school district money. I absolutely believe that that could happen if people worked at it. I absolutely believe it, without having a policy that says what this says, in my feeling. It just needs to be tried, that's all.
I just wanted to add one thing from the elementary perspective as a practice. What we've done is, well, actually, I have an account because I get the lettuce salad of the day, which is always very good. Thank you, Sue. So I've had an account, and I've told the ladies, if there's ever an issue, put that lunch on my account. Put it on my account. If there's ever anything, if there's a question, put it on my account, let that child keep going. Secondly, the adults communicate if there's money that needs to be put in the account. So the secretary will call later in the afternoon, child's not there, and talk to the parent, saying money in there. That is a practice, that's what it's looked like.
Thank you.
And how big of an issue is it, though? That's why I'm trying to get a scope of the issue.
Yeah, really good question. You know what? There are phone calls made. I will say quite often home saying, you put money in your account. You put money in your account. But that child, let's keep in mind, that child went through and got lunch. That child wasn't.
You know, the only thing that I have a problem with here is putting the burden on the child. That should be taken out. It shouldn't be the child's responsibility to do that. It should be, you know.
We implemented this year, I want to say late spring, allowing unlimited charging at least because I was notified of an MTE requirement to be K through 2. And we discussed it amongst the administrators and decided it didn't make a lot of sense to have a separate policy for K through 2 and another one for 3 and 4. So we did implement unlimited charging at least for all grades. And I've tried to pull it up and I'm not getting any access, so I can't give you the dollar value now, but I want to say it went up to maybe from an average of about 60 to 65 to maybe 90. And having between 20 and 25 students and having, around 30 students that owe money. So there was an increase in the amount of debt we did, and that debt has to be absorbed by the district because if we don't collect that before school starts in September, we can't cure it.
Was that weekly or monthly? What was the time frame on it?
It was just the ending number, the ending outstanding balance for K through 4.
It was less than a semester, though. I mean, that
Yeah.
change happened like maybe the last quarter.
If that, I wanted maybe in the end of April, beginning of May was
It
probably.
hasn't been very long.
So whatever happens with this, I would like you to pass on to the new superintendent to scope the problem, please, and then we'll deal with it better next fall when we have a better read in December.
Where this became more of an issue is once the federal government started requiring us to have a policy in writing.
Yes. And I know Warren Consolidated has an unlimited charging policy, and they have a tremendous problem with how people got food service. So I don't know, Brian, if you know what that number is, but I hear around $80,000 every year from their food service director. So it does create issues that you need to be aware of, not that I don't support it, I just want to make sure that you're aware of the issues that come along with doing that, because there are added costs for trying to collect those funds.
Okay. Thank you.
So we expect to see recommendations in August.
Yes.
Anything else?
Thank you.
We're good?
Thank you. A motion would be in order.
I move to approve the second reading of the student parent handbook with the amendment.
That works.
Support?
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Well, that was good discussion, and that's, it was. I think we all learned something.
Okay. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, MHSAA membership resolution. Dave, you coming up for that?
Each year, we are required to sign the resolution for the MHSAA, agreeing that we will follow by all of their bylaws, rules, and regulations. And they usually send that at the end of May, beginning of June. I think Dan has a copy of that to sign.
He's the one who signs it?
He was the board secretary.
Okay.
So that's what we have in front of the signature.
Okay.
Agreeing that we will
All
follow
right.
their rules.
All right. There's a sample resolution.
I move to approve this, no, that's the wrong one.
10G.
Yeah. I move that we approve and accept the MHSAA resolution for the 14-15 school year, which will allow our high school to compete within MHSAA state tournaments.
Support?
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, energy easement. Dr. Olson?
Okay, we've been working with Simcoe for the last several months. As you remember, last winter, when it was so very, very cold, Forest and some other areas didn't have any heat, which Dan vividly remembers. Because they couldn't get gas there. And so Simcoe asked permission to put in a temporary line that ran through our property. And after they got that in, they asked that we consider having that be permanent. And so we've been working with them to do so. That does add redundancy to the district and provides added service to Lee, which was in jeopardy of maybe not having heat during that same period of time. So, we have that added benefit. They have been very good to work with in trying to get this accomplished. We had our attorney review their first proposal, and he came back and suggested that we should perhaps receive a little something for giving up that easement because it might impede our future use of if we needed an easement or putting something there. Coming up with some figure, I contacted local real estate agents, Carol Walters for one, just to try to get a sense as to what kind of value is that worth. And so I also asked Simcoe when I talked about our attorney's comments, and they have been agreeable to covering our attorney's fees and getting this accomplished. They went ahead and handled the title search for us, got all of that record in order, and then they are offering us the $4,351 for the easement. This has been reviewed twice initially and in its final form by Gordon Van Weerden of True Law. So I think it's ready for your approval unless you have any further questions or concerns.
Okay.
I move to approve the approval of the attached easement of Central as presented.
Or,
Rob, was that you?
yes.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Business Services, MISD contract.
Our current contract with MISD for our business services, essentially Vicki, expires in August, and since we don't have a meeting in July, I thought our new superintendent would appreciate knowing that he was going to have the consistency of Vicki as we move forward, particularly with the construction project going, and she's so acquainted. We've had her involved in all of our meetings and et cetera, and we've always had a good audit report since she's been with us. Not that you didn't before, but I've enjoyed working with her. And so Paul Padilla is, I contacted him, and they're offering us the opportunity to continue for another 2 years at our current rate. And the agreement is attached. So I recommend approval.
Does Vicki get a vote in this?
Vicki doesn't get a vote, but if the district or Brian would want to change this, we are not tying his hands because there is a provision to be able to do something different if you needed to. But
Well, we're not doing anything different.
All right, I move the approval of the Business Services MISD agreement for 2 years at the current rate.
Work.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Thank you, Vicki, for your good work.
Absolutely. We're very lucky to have you, Vicki.
She loves that podium time.
Yes, she sure does.
actually, when I put this action sheet in, I didn't expect to have the contract. It is at $9,000 per month. Probably the record should show that.
Oh, okay. 9,000 per month, Andy, to
Yeah, because I
You
said
good
we
with
could
that?
just do an
To add
addendum.
to your motion?
To
Yeah.
add
Okay.
to.
And Jeff, you're good to support that? Okay. I will do a roll call. Andy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, central office contracts.
Okay, you have attached the next year's contracts for the AP clerk, the board secretary, and the accounts payable position, transportation mechanic, transportation coordinator, and network computer technician.
There's a resolution at the bottom there.
Move the approval of attached contract for the AP clerk, board secretary, accounts payable position, transportation mechanic, transportation coordinator, and network/computer technician. Support.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Yes, so a question I have is, so the added percentage that's in here, is that included in the budget we just voted on?
No, he's not.
So we just need to make a note there that there's additional
That's correct.
outlay for the budget.
Correct. Anybody else? Okay, I will do a roll call. Rob?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. PCMI contract.
This is a continuation of our current contract that actually was entered into before I came, and they would like an updated one. The rates have stayed the same, other than any cost that has been imposed over the years because of changes in government policy, but like Obamacare. But there's no, their particular portion of the cost has stayed the same. So it's at the same rate as last year.
Okay. There's a sample resolution.
I move the approval of the PCMI attached contract for the 2014-15 school year.
Is that you, Bridget? Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
Do we ever look at any of the other companies that do the same work? Have we ever felt the need to do that?
We have, and Vicki, we looked at EduStaff and another one Vicki got some pricing on. Yes, and there were some implementation costs that were additional upfront for the year. So there were some real trade-offs there. The EduStaff might have been a little bit less on one of the percentages, but they had the $750 upfront cost to make the change. And at this point in time, with our involvement with the bond project and everything, we felt like we wanted to continue with PCMI for another year.
Anybody else? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Jeff?
Aye.
Bridget? Andy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Student Activities Director contract.
Okay, this is a renewal similar to the prior year, and at the same rate, and we needed to approve the PCMI contract before they would allow us to contract for this.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's partly why that came up.
Okay. There's a resolution.
Move the approval of contract with PCMI for Student Activities Director for the 2014-15 school year at the salary amount of $50,000 plus insurance and fees similar to the 2013-14 school year.
Or,
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call. Jeff?
Aye.
Rob?
aye.
Andy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Can't read my writing here. Tracy?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Bus purchase.
Okay, I didn't ask Larry to be here tonight because this bus purchase is a result of the walk zone, and it would be adding one like the two that we approved last month.
Okay.
I move the purchase of one Bluebird propane bus at the cost of $93,103 as specified in the quote.
Support.
Okay. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
So this bus was supposed to be purchased when? Not now, when? In the original bond plan?
Well, it can be purchased any time, but the goal was to delay purchases as long as we thought we comfortably could, to try to spread out and not have so many buses that needed replacement at the same time, which is the problem we have right now because of several buses having been purchased with the prior bond there. We have several buses of the same age. So,
But there was a plan mapped out for the bond.
It was 3 years for the next bus purchase. So 2 this year. Then 3 years purchase one.
Is this eliminating a bus from the fleet, or is it putting another bus under?
puts another bus in the fleet in order to be able to transport
Right,
the added
right.
walk zone students. This is what we discussed when the walk zone was discussed.
Right.
Good? Okay, I'll do a roll call. Andy?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Tracy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, our next public comments. Is there anyone out there that would like to address the board? No? Okay. Next, agenda items to be included at the next meeting. We probably have nothing at the moment.
Oh, we
Do
need
we?
to honor some retirees.
Not at the August meeting. We would do it, we do it in September.
Can we please change that at some point? I know
We
you and
are.
I have talked about that personally.
Yes,
but-
we are going to do that, yes.
Very much.
Well, okay. Okay. Okay, next, we have a closed session, so I would need a motion.
I got one other thing.
Oh.
Whether we can discuss it. So at some point, for those of the community that don't come to the budget meetings, so the community at large doesn't get to see what the board deciding in the public meetings, but no one decides to come. There was a lot of input with the athletic director. So we just went over 11L, and we approved for the student activities director. Is it the appropriate place here to discuss, the change of the name there and why we did that? I mean, I would think if the community wasn't part of those discussions.
Oh, that they would think that was a new position?
Well,
Is that what you're
they
saying?
just need to understand that there was concern out there in the community, within the school district and the board, and how we resolve that. So,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm the person to do that, but we could
Well,
take-
if you'd like to, go right ahead. We would love to have someone else
Well-
talk, certainly, go ahead.
So to make this very short and sweet, we all appreciated what our current athletic director does for the community and in that position. But as we looked at it, we're paying a premium for him, and he does a great job for us and within the whole, beyond the district, but we just couldn't justify the current salary. So what we did is, we did a pulse of what he actually does beyond his current duty description. And he does a lot more, so we're using funds from the general fund to pay for that, to augment, so we can keep that superior service from that person, but it comes from two different pots of money. Make sense?
And the position is being, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes good sense. And the position, we are calling it Student Activities Director, so it's
More encompassing.
encompassing all of the responsibilities that Dr. Mylart does, instead of just being the athletic director. Yes.
But then maybe one thing you want to consider in the future is the stuff that we spent a lot of time as the board and the administration, what were the concessions that we made to continue to give the district the curriculum and stuff that we would like to give them, but still meet our fiscal responsibilities. So I don't know if that's a little PowerPoint thing or how we communicate that. Otherwise, the community doesn't know. Like right now, also, we approved the, I forget what the name of the word is. Well, the walk zone. The other one was the pay to play. That was increased, that was approved here. We didn't talk about how much. So if there was some way to put out maybe a newsletter.
Well,
or what goes
I
in-
believe, are you from The Voice? Well, wouldn't it be nice to maybe have a nice article from The Voice about things that happened? She was here for our budget hearing, so that might be, Dr. Olson could speak to her about things with our budget, a nice, good article about Richmond schools and things that we did for The Voice. That would be the start.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of details that weren't discussed
Absolutely.
here.
Yes, because
that-
no one comes to the budget
Well,
hearing.
Correct.
They
And-
should, it's publicized, but nobody ever comes.
But
You're right.
I think we should take credit as the board and the school district for those things that we deliberated over and how we keep these activities and stuff that,
Mhm.
and why we, maybe not all of it, but why we made the conclusions that we came to.
Mhm.
So,
Good point. So Dr. Olson,
Mhm.
hopefully we'll have a really good article in the newspaper.
all right.
Good deal. Okay.
I'll make sure you all have my contact information.
Excellent. Well, we don't need all. You've got Dr. Olson, and we can introduce you to our new superintendent, and it'll be wonderful. Okay, we are going to have a closed session, so I would need a motion to go into closed session regarding attorney-client letter.
I moved to go into closed session.
Jeff, was that support? Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.